Hello and welcome to Wires from the Deep, a Silo Series podcast. Today is Friday, January 17th, 2025, and you're listening to episode 25, What the Duck. My name is Krista Watanabe.
And I'm Angela Traficante.
And we're going to be breaking down the Silo Season 2 finale, Into the Fire. So we're going to get right into it, and it starts with, we're actually going to start with Silo 17, even though the episode begins in 18, because we felt that we were discussing the two different timelines, and we felt that this was a good way to go about it. But basically, the Silo 17 stuff starts with a kind of emotional scene because Jimmy, Jules, and Eater go to the Conroy apartment, which was the IT head. And he flashes back to his parents, and oh my god, I love this part. What about you?
This was so emotional.
I know, I love the way that they set it up. You know, like how he's like, he can see them, but he can also see himself in the mirror. And he's like, oh, I'm so old. I was like, the way that he spoke, oh my god. He was so good in this.
Yeah, he has like that very quiet, vulnerable voice.
Yeah. He sounds so young, even though he looks so old.
I noticed too that Jules was a bit more patient with him in this scene than she has previously been in scenes, like after she had her like revelation, I think, before about kind of his mental state. Like she's clearly rushed, but she kind of knows more about how she should approach him.
Yeah, she's sensitive. And I paid attention to this when I watched it the second time. She specifically calls him Jimmy all the time. She doesn't call him Solo anymore.
Yeah.
It's like you would think that maybe like she's still getting used to it, or she still just calls him that sometimes because it's like his nickname and that's what they've been going by. But yeah, she seems to make a point to call him Jimmy, which I like. So he says a lot of interesting things, and one of them is that he actually says that his mom had her own suit too, but he didn't have one as a kid. So I thought that was a little interesting because what does that mean exactly? Like they'll save his wife, but he has to leave his kid behind.
Yeah, I was wondering that.
But then Eater and Jules leave, and then he sees a note about the safeguard, and this triggers a memory with him, and he goes to get her, and he doesn't want to talk about. I thought this was. It's even a little important because he doesn't want to talk about the safeguard in front of Eater. He says that she's too young, right?
Yeah, he clearly wants to be in private with Jules.
Yeah, and Eater reveals her name, that her mom used to call her Hope, which I really loved. That was a nice name for her. And when she's gone, Jimmy explains about the safeguard procedure and how he heard his parents talking about it. I wanted to talk a little bit about this because this put the idea in my head that Jimmy has possibly not spoken to the computer. Because, yeah, right?
I agree.
Because he doesn't seem to know what it is without this memory, right? So it's like I don't know. I mean, he's seen the things in the legacy, like he's read the books, he's watched videos, but it doesn't sound like he knows the things that, you know, how we were talking about how he doesn't seem to know about the 51st silo.
Yeah. And this goes back a little to like what the voice said to Lukas at the end of last episode, where like he was like, I've spoken to some people, but didn't speak to Wilkins. Because Wilkins was like never an IT person or never like a shadow or never involved. And I wonder if like Jimmy's considered like not involved and therefore the voice would never speak to him.
Yeah, because all this time I kind of had assumed that because he was in the vault and despite who he was not, I had thought that he had access to the computer and he could talk to it, you know. I don't know why. I assume that, I guess it's just because I thought because he's in there that, you know, he would have access to it somehow. But I guess it makes sense that it wouldn't speak to him either. Which and it's also supported by because later on, when we'll talk about this later, but Sims takes his family into the vault and the algorithm tells him that he and his kid have to leave, right? And we'll go more into that later because I don't really know what that means, but it kind of seems like there's like an age requirement for that. And since Jimmy was in the vault when he was 11 or 12, then I think it wouldn't have spoken to him. And yeah, because he doesn't have a badge, he's not the shadow, then he wouldn't have
Yeah, or it seems like maybe there's some sort of, like, approval that has to happen, like,
Mhm.
pre-approval from, like, the IT head and the computer to even be, like, considered for talking to it.
Yeah, because when Bernard brought Lucas in, he had him state his name and, like, log in say his position, right? So I don't know
Yeah.
if, like, the IT shadow has to be introduced by the IT head for it to have actual access, because the legacy, like, he had access to everything in there and stuff like that, but I don't know.
And with Jimmy, like, going back to Jimmy, like, I also wonder, like, if that's why he's sort of, like, slipped under the radar all this time, like,
Mm,
I would think that if, like, the voice knew something about Jimmy being in the vault and being there this entire time and Silo 17 still maybe having citizens, they might, like, care, but,
yeah.
like, whatever's behind this, whether it's, like, a sentient AI or people or, like, you'd think that if they knew, like, this would have come up in the last, like, 25 years, or actually it's more for Jimmy.
I guess, but at the same time, like, wouldn't they be able to, like, just turn on their cameras and see, like, that he's in there? You know, it's not just like they don't realize that he's there at all because he's not logged in. They just maybe just choose not to talk to him, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like
I'm hoping
beneath
that
their notice, maybe.
I think that's one of the things that, like, will probably be an open question for next season because I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah,
important that, like, Silo 17 has these people that are, like, kind of just, like, hanging around.
yeah. They're loose threads, and they
Yeah,
don't seem to care
exactly.
about
It
them.
does Yeah, which is funny because this thing doesn't seem like the type of thing that wants loose threads hanging around,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
loose threads that know about the safeguard.
Yeah. Maybe they just figures they're no threat, so, like, they've assessed him and figured, "No." Especially
Yeah.
since it started when he was a kid. I mean, maybe they're just like, "What is this kid gonna do? He's not gonna threaten anything. We can just ignore him."
Although going back to this scene, I'm just, like, also wondering why there's all these the Jimmy's apartment with that his parents had, like, have all of the papers that detail all of these
Yeah, just lying
things
around,
that yeah,
right?
just lying around, and I'm like, "Who printed this out or took it out or whatever?" Like, and also this information is very, like, heavily classified,
Very
so
restricted.
that stuck out to me and when we were watching it.
Okay, and another key detail is that Solo put Jimmy in the vault. I had thought all this time that it was his dad who put him in the vault, but I guess maybe he sent Solo to put him in there, and I don't know what happened to Solo after that, but hopefully we'll find out eventually. But he gave us a brief timeline. He says that he Solo put him in the vault. There was fighting. The sheriff came, and that his dad told the sheriff that it was safe to go outside. And how does that jive with what we already know? Because there's the scene that we've seen two scenes with them. So the sheriff in the intro to the season says, "Do you think Russell was lying?" And so I guess that's what Solo was talking about. Russell had told him it was safe to go outside. So he says, "Do you think Russell was lying?" The wife says, "I don't know." And he says, "Well, there's one way to find out." And he says, "And if he was lying, we're all dead anyway. So let's go outside." So that explains why they decided to go. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it kind of cast it in a different light. You know, I kind of thought that their goal was to go outside, but it kind of sounds like the idea came from Russell himself for them to go outside. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they also learned that the safeguard is a pipe and that they
Mm-hmm.
needed to put a cap on the pipe. So, like, I think
Yeah.
that might be something that lent itself to these conversations that we don't know much about yet. Like,
Did it sound to you that he was saying that they put the cap on the pipe and that's why they could go outside?
yes, it sounded a little bit to me like those were related things. So I thought maybe Russell thought that it would be safe for some reason.
Uh huh.
Despite
And
what
then
he would have maybe known about the safeguard and about the world outside, because presumably he has more information, so
Yeah, because people have been honing in ever since he said it. But when Solo had first explained to Jules what happened to everybody when everybody went outside, he says that they were fine for a little while, and then a dust cloud came, and then they all died. So people have been focusing on that and saying that wording is pretty, like, important, and it kind of sounds like with this information that they did stop. the safeguard, and so they maybe reverted to some kind of other thing to achieve the same goal. And I had to think about this a while before I figured it out. But basically, the safeguard is there to keep them within their little area of the silo. You know, like the hill that surrounds the silo. There's like the hillside, right? Yeah, so it's to keep them in their own silo area so that they don't go wandering off and appearing in everybody else's camera view. So
yeah, I just assumed it's something they do if they really feel like the situation is untenable and the people are going to go out.
mm-hmm.
And in this case, though, I think the safeguard didn't work because they had already capped it off, and then they got out, and then maybe whatever's controlling this did, like you said, did something else as a backup plan.
Yeah. So,
and this sort of jives obviously with what we know about Quinn and all of that stuff, because he did something that prevented them from going out, which presumably saved the silo from being safeguarded.
Yeah. Okay. And so they had sent Hope to go back to the vault and said that they would come there later. And so when she gets there, the kids are like having a good time. They're in reading books. It's like pop-up books and everything too. And then it looks like they're eating canned peaches, which fits with like the Georgia theme and everything. So, and it looked like peaches to me. So
I like that too, because it obviously goes with one of our other favorite shows, From, where the emotionally stunted adult who has been trapped since he was a child all alone loves to eat canned peaches.
Yeah. That's true. I forgot about that. But yeah, so Hope walks in and Audrey was like, she looked really happy for once, right? She was really enjoying herself. And as soon as she walks in, her face just like drops. And she's like, oh, it's you. Oh my God. People were really focusing on that. Everybody, I felt a little bad because I don't like her either, but I just felt like, oh my God, this is going to add more fuel to the Audrey roast fest that people are on.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, to be fair to everyone on the internet, there's like nothing to like about her.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're gonna get like a redemption arc for her later, but she's like shot people with arrows and like been a complete like nightmare to everyone that she's talked to. So I don't know. I don't really feel bad. They clearly wrote her that way.
Yeah, she is very easy to hate. So Jules and Jimmy get back and they try to get the kids to help set her up to go outside. And then she pulls out the suit, and oh my God, it was eaten by moths. I was like, oh fuck. And then Jules said the exact same thing.
I know, my heart like dropped. Like I was like, oh, after all that.
Oh my God. But then we were just talking about how Audrey is easy to help. Then she blames Eater or Hope, and I couldn't believe it. Like when I was watching it again today, the look on her face, she is such a mean girl. Like she was like, it's you because you're the eater. Oh my God. It was such a stupid argument, right?
Jules losing it on her right after that is probably like one of the best scenes in the season, though.
I know, it felt really good.
Yeah, I think she said everything that like we would all want to say.
Oh yeah. Because she was being such a bully to her, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, to be the devil's advocate, she did lose her parents. But I don't know. It just feels like.
Yeah, you have to remember that they're kids. Like they were kids when this happened. They haven't had great role models. They haven't grown up very well. Like that's all fair. But even still, I was pretty satisfied watching Jules just completely lose it on her. She went like all like, I don't know, mama bear on her too.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like a mean outburst. Like it wasn't like intentionally cruel. It was like, I am schooling you because I am a wiser adult. And I'm doing so harshly because you're being harsh.
Did you have a particular... Like, I like the part where she was like, don't be mad at her, be mad at the motherfuckers who put us here.
I think that resonated with a lot of people on the internet because I saw that quoted a lot on Reddit. Like people being like, oh, that hit home. But yeah, after her rant, she turns around and Jimmy is gone. And for the record, like they were building up, or oh my God, Jimmy ran away. He took the suit. And I was like, no, he didn't really run away with the suit. And sure enough, he just went to go test the suit underwater for her. So I had faith in him. Yeah, I didn't think at all that he like stolen it or anything.
Yeah.
Like, for real, I mean.
She tries to hug him, and he reacts like, "Oh, no, I don't wanna hug."
It's very, like, I don't know, like, young boy or teenage boy.
Yeah.
Like, ew, hugs.
But so they walk her up to the cafeteria, and Hope asks her if she's coming back. And she tells her she doesn't want to lie to her. And she doesn't know what's going to happen outside. But she tells her again, she like gives her some affirmations about how things aren't her fault and that she's smart and she'll be fine and that they'll be all be fine. I really like that she said that to her because she seems like she's somebody who's really vulnerable and being picked on and she needed somebody in her corner. So I feel like that's gonna if she doesn't make it back at all or doesn't make it back for a long time, I feel like that's something that Hope can cling to.
Yeah, I mean, I get the impression here, because the next thing that happens is Jimmy and Jules hug, and
Mm-hmm.
then he asks her, like, essentially, "Are you gonna come back?" And
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
sort of hesitates and says, "Nothing will stop her from trying to come
Yeah.
back." And I got the vibe from her that, like, she was pretty confident she was not coming back, like she didn't wanna
I think
outright
she was
say it,
just
but
worried because I mean she was gonna go
yeah.
outside, but I did get the impression that she was sincere when she did say that
Oh,
she
yeah,
was gonna
sorry. I mean,
try.
I don't mean that she wasn't sincere, that she wants to come back. I just the way she said it made me think that she thought there was, like, I don't know, like a
Yeah.
98% chance, like, there was no way she was gonna come back, either because she was gonna die or something was gonna happen or whatever.
But oh my god, their hug. So they had set up where he didn't want the hug, but then he like gives her the hug, and it was so cute the way that it started off. Like his arms are like super stiff on the sides, and like he doesn't know what to do. And then he hugs her, and they have a really nice hug. I love that
And it's, is like a culmination of the closeness that's been, like, growing between them
building.
all
Yeah,
season, right? Because, like, at
yeah,
first it was like, "There's a vault door between us," and then it was
yeah.
like, "Oh, but there isn't now, but we still don't get close to one another." Like,
And then
they
the
were
shoulder
often, like
tap.
yeah, exactly, like, they were often really far apart, and then they started becoming closer together, and then that shoulder touch, which was so cute, and now,
Yeah,
like, we're on full on hugging over here.
yeah. I love how they built them up. Okay, so that wraps it up. We're gonna stop there for 17 and we're gonna move to 18 because the two storylines converge. And so the episode starts off. I really liked how they started the episode with the ticking watch. It immediately
Yes.
made me really anxious.
And then you recall it later at the important parts, which I
Yeah,
certainly did, so
yeah. But yeah, so Shirley and Knox are telling Dr. Nichols that Lucas came down and claimed that Jules is alive, and he's saying that, oh, everybody's been talking about Julie lives, but he hasn't really believed anybody until they came and told him that, which Ian Glen was really good in this. They show us why they've been building up his storyline all this time because it is coming to this. Like she's one of the people that he's trying to get back to. That's like that was part of her rant to Audrey, right? She's saying, I'm trying to get back to everybody that I love, including my dad. Okay, and then it moves to what is arguably a lot of people's favorite scene. One of many
yeah.
favorite
We
scenes.
we go to Lucas. Lucas climbs the
Lucas.
ladder back up from the tunnel.
And then some big guy. I think it's the guy who was on the stairs, right? Who questioned him when he first came down. It
Yeah.
looked like the same
Yeah, I think that's
guy.
the same person.
But he took his badge. I was like, dude, don't touch the blue badge. And then sure enough, Lucas just boom, right in the nuts. Everybody loves that Lucas yells, fuck man, sorry. And he just takes off.
Because it sounds so sincere. That was the best part about it. Like, he really was like, up, like, oh my
I'm
god, what
so
did I
sorry
just do? I'm
I
so
did that.
sorry.
It's such a Lucas thing, right? Oh my god, it's so funny. Uh, okay, so they move to Shirley and Knox unveiling their plan in walkers with Billings and Hank. They're saying that they're going to lead a team to storm the barricade, that they need to keep them busy for 3 hours because they need to rig the generator with explosives. And I don't know, did you buy this? Because when I was watching it, I have to admit, I bought it. I was like, what the fuck are they doing? They
I bought
can't
it.
blow the generator.
I definitely bought it at this point, and I kept buying it when they got detained later, which we'll talk about, and
Yeah.
it took a long time for me to not
for it to
buy
click.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they got us good, I thought.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job because I'm normally really wise to that sort of thing. Like
Suspicious, yeah.
I watch enough mysteries and thrillers and all of that that I'm normally the first person to be suspicious about that sort of thing, and I didn't even think of like the hand signals and all of that.
Yeah, so Bernard tells Amundsen to send all the raiders down below because they need to stop them because I mean the generator being blown up is a big deal. That I don't blame him for sending
It's
everybody.
like the biggest deal
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. And then they show like two guys who are like hearing like thumps and things at the barricade and they're like, what was that? I'm like, dude, get out of the way. And then sure enough, holy shit, he gets taken out by a freaking barrel. That was a little shocking. And then they cut to mechanical. And actually, I didn't catch this until I watched it a second time. But you know when they're all charging at them with their weapons and everything, Nox yells, "Let's fucking go!" that was awesome. But they don't show a lot of the fighting. They just have that, and then they eventually cut to like everybody's been arrested, including Billings. He gets arrested. Like he's trying to block off the door to the apartment with Kathleen and the baby inside. And then, holy shit, they just bust down the door. That scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, I was worried for Kathleen.
Yeah, because it was just such sudden violence. Like, I didn't think that they would just go straight to like blowing the door off the hinges kind of thing, you know? Patrick gets a good line in. But then yeah, they show basically everybody getting arrested. And it didn't really register for me what was happening in this part until I watched it a second time. But basically they arrest all these people and then they march them upstairs. Because when I was watching it the first time, I was like, how are all these people like all over the place? But basically they quell the rebellion and then they take them upstairs. And I think because there was a part they had shown in the recap that Bernard had told the sheriff's department that they wanted to convert one of the cafeterias into basically a jail, right? So that's where they took them. And I think that's somewhere near Judicial. It's not the up top cafeteria, the one on level one.
Yeah, I thought it was like a more mid-level one.
Yeah, it's somewhere up like up at least above like where Dr. Nichols does his thing. But so I guess a few like it must be like half a day because they have to march everybody up. And then another thing that clues you into that is they're reunited with Teddy in the jail area, and the mechanical people are reunited with Carla. So they are, I guess, being pooled together in this new jail area because Teddy had been arrested for the supply raid. The Sims are watching and they're wondering if to pick the right side, and so this is kind of like their end game. Camille tells him to find a way into the vault and she's going to go get their son, and that supports what people were saying about how that's who her alliance is with. It's with her family, it's with her preserving the life of her son. And so something important to note is that there's seems to be a division of the people in the rebellion. There's the mechanical people, which is Knox and Shirley and Walker and all of them. And basically they're just trying to they're trying to free Carla, and they're trying to like bring order back to the silo and get it and like clear their names, right? But then there's people like Patrick, and he wants to go outside. And oh my god, I was so worried, you know? Like when he starts like because Sandy comes to him after hearing him shouting, and she tells him, and they bring back the screen glitch. I was happy that they finally brought that back because everybody has always on the sub has always been like, "What happened to the screen glitch? How come they just don't go back to it? We're never gonna hear about it again." And I was like, "Oh, thank God they brought it back." um, but yeah, he starts screaming, "Julia lives!" And he's getting really riled up, and he wants to go outside. And we had talked I think it was last week, that he had been saying dangerous things to Kathleen about how it's okay outside and they should go outside. And he was bringing back what Allison had said 2 years prior and stuff like that. So okay, so they show Walker meeting up with Carla, and she's really eager. And this scene is another thing that cinched it and really got me, is when Amundsen tells her, "Oh, the mayor really appreciates what you've done," right? And he reveals that she's the mole. And we know now that Knox and Shirley already knew, so they're acting here. But Carla was not because they weren't in contact with her, so she didn't know. So her reaction was genuine, but I bought it. You know, I was like, holy shit, she really did do it. And I was like, what? I was expecting a fake out and I didn't get it. And I was just like, wait, what?
I bought it here too, and honestly, I was kind of shocked by Carla's reaction. Carla says, "I hope they send you out to
I
clean."
know. It was
And I was like,
brutal.
my husband sitting next to me was like, "Remember, these two were married." I was like, yeah, I was like, wow, that's a really big jump.
That's harsh.
Yeah, it's like really harsh, even for someone who you think might have like maybe betrayed people. Like that was like, it's like that's saying, "I hope you die." Like,
Yeah.
and not even in a nice way. Like that's just like, "I hope you die" in like the worst way that the silo knows, because it's how we punish people.
And then, holy shit, Walker goes to meet with Bernard, and the look on his face, he is so smug. He's like, "Oh, I heard how Carla reacted to you," and he's just like practically like speaking with glee.
Yeah, the framing in this scene was really good too, like the cinematography, and I think it made it even better. Like the whole scene was amazing as it
Yeah.
progressed.
Plus, there's just her sitting in his office is kind of unnerving because I would have never expected to see her, of all people, sitting in his office.
Yeah, I going back to what you said like a minute ago about how like they must have walked all of them all the way up here. When she was sitting in
Hmm.
Bernard's office, I was like, "Wait, they seriously walked her from like 144 or wherever her workshop is up to like
Yeah.
wherever his office is?" Like, and I was like, "Oh, I think they're doing that like teleportation thing again." And my husband was like, "Yeah, I don't care anymore."
Yeah, I think time just went by and we just didn't really get any signals for it. But so she starts telling him that she wants to tell him a story about the generator. And like Bernard is all like, yeah, whatever. All mechanics want to talk about is the generator. And I didn't really know where this was going. But at the same time, they're showing how I guess they had sent a raider who was like some kind of like bomb expert, so were like focusing on this one lady who was gonna go check out the bomb. And so she went down into the generator room. They show her like it's really loud and she's tracing the wires and stuff like that. But then they have Martha interspersed, and she's talking about how all her kids down in mechanical had to learn sign language. And this was when it finally started dawning on me, because, and especially when they showed that the wires weren't connected,
Yeah.
so it was just a fake. And then I started wondering, how come this bomb expert doesn't think, hey, something's up here?
I mean, she does, right? Like I think she did think that was weird.
Okay, so do you think those were real explosives? Because I feel like maybe they just made like fake looking bombs. They just taped a bunch of pipes to some barrels and there wasn't actually anything in there.
I mean, you wouldn't know that from looking at them from the outside, though.
Well, because they needed the gunpowder that they had for Nichols to blow the stairs, right? So
Yeah,
they
they
would have put
definitely
it
just
there.
had like wrapped packages, but I don't think you would have known that by looking at them. You would have had to take
Yeah.
it off and take it
Yeah.
apart and all of that. So
Yeah.
I think it really took the wires, like seeing the wires before they were
Hmm.
like, huh.
Although you would think that if it wasn't filled with anything, they could have just connected the wires just to like stall her a little bit longer.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they had a backup plan.
They had shown that part of their plan was to have Nichols escort a raider who was injured up the stairs, and so that's how he's getting up the stairs. He's going with, I don't remember her name. She's one of the ladies who was there when Jules got arrested in the cornfield. Yeah, he had dropped something, and when he first did it, I thought it was a camera. It kind of looked like a camera, but I didn't know what it was. So, what did you
Oh,
think it
it was
was?
really obvious to me that it was a timer. I was
Oh, okay,
like,
okay.
oh no. Like it had like a clock face on it and like a little
uh
like thing and stuff. So, but yes, I was like, oh, that can't be good.
So I really like the scene between Nichols and Hank, because they understand that, and this is like a common thing that we see in movies and TV, where something goes wrong with the detonator, something goes wrong with the timer, and somebody has to blow it manually. So you knew what was coming. And so Hank is just like, he was really emotional. He was like, I'll do it. And he like told him absolutely not that he was going to do it. And he gives him the watch that was Jules, which was George's, which was the congressman guy's. I liked how they tied all these things back and back and back. But yeah, so he has to connect the two wires and blow the stairs himself. And when I went back, it was between 90 and 92 they took out the stairs. And then Jules and Jimmy actually hear it in Silo 17. Yeah. And then the sheriffs take over, and Martha reveals that they have the sheriffs under control. She like empties out her backpack, and all the sheriff's badges are in there. Although I do want to note that Billings was still wearing his. After so what did you think about how Bernard was toward Martha? Because Martha was trying to do like a 5, 4, 3. She was trying to time it right, but because it was like a manual thing, it didn't go the way that they wanted it to.
I thought that was like the best scene in the show, in like the episode, honestly. Like his reaction, like he's like, what was that? Like I love his just like evil villain reaction to that.
Yeah, he was so like he thought it was so hilarious, right? And you have to admit that on Walker's part, it's kind of embarrassing, right? You're trying to like facilitate this gotcha moment that time down to the second, and then it doesn't it doesn't happen.
I just like how she stayed composed for it though, and was like,
yeah.
"Oh no, it'll happen. I may not have been right down to the second, but like you can laugh at me all you want. I'm just gonna sit here and take your like weird like verbal abuse."
He took so much pleasure out of that though. Like he was like cracking up laughing at her and everything. I don't think we've ever seen him that happy.
I mean, yeah, I think it was happiness, but I also kind of think it was like relief, like just like I think he was genuinely scared for a second that something was going to happen, and then it didn't. So he was like, "Oh, thank God!" And then that
it's
that
like
was
a very like ha ha ha, I won.
Yeah.
But oh my God, he goes through such a roller coaster after this, right? So he hears the boom, and then he's asking her what she did, and then he goes out and he tells Amundsen to protect IT at all costs, but he says that all the raiders are trapped below, and maybe he can go call Sims, which I thought was such a slight on him. More piling on Sims, right? It's like, oh, the only one left is Sims. Should I go get him? Poor guy. But so they had shown Lukas sprinting up the stairs. I do want to note that so far Lukas is the only one that seems to get winded from doing exercise in the silo. When they show him coming out of the tunnel after climbing that ladder, he's like panting and everything. I was like, oh, finally someone is like tired from all this exercise. And then when he's running up the stairs, he looks tired again. So Lukas makes it up there, and he finds Bernard, right? And I thought it was amusing that like these two meet, and then there's two like peepers watching them. Amundsen's like watching them, and Sims is watching him from above and everything, and they're just watching this interaction between them. And oh my God, this drove me absolutely crazy, because I had been a little like surprised after last week, the way that the episode ended. I thought they were gonna put in this episode what Lukas saw down below. Not just that he talked to the algorithm and he like saw the tunnel. I thought that he was gonna go into the door that he at the end of the tunnel, and that he was gonna see something. And I thought that they were gonna reveal that. But then they show him coming up and we don't get to see it. And then they bring us to this conversation with Bernard, which is like world tilting for Bernard, and then we don't get to hear what it is. I was like, are they seriously hiding this from us? Oh my God.
I feel like I had like the opposite reaction from like you and some of the community. I actually thought that when Lukas got down at the end of episode 9, that the voice was basically turning him around. Like, I didn't get the impression there was really much more that happened that we didn't see. Like, I thought maybe they had a conversation, like a brief conversation, or the voice like revealed something. But I never got the impression that Lukas was going to go through the door or see anything or really learn anything new. So like I thought the voice was essentially admonishing him for going down there. So when he went up to like talk to Bernard, I was just like, I don't know what he's going to tell him. Does he have any new information for Bernard? But I guess he might. Like, I guess like the fact that anything is down there at all. I guess the fact that they talked about, initiating the safeguard if Lukas told anyone is all like important information.
Well, see, the thing that makes me question that is that Salvador Quinn's decoded letter told him to go down there to confirm, right? I don't remember what he said to confirm, but he's supposed to go down there to confirm something. So I don't understand why he would have had to just go down there and he just speaks to the algorithm and that confirms something. To me, that doesn't really add up. And I feel like there's something that happened to Lukas after that and they just didn't show it to us.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough to say either way, so this is the type of stuff that in my mystery box viewing head I just push out and I just don't worry about. Like, I'm like, they'll tell us if it's
It'll come.
important, and if it's not important, like, I'm not gonna like dedicate time to thinking about it because it might literally be nothing. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's entirely likely that there was more to Lukas's like adventure down there, or he learned more. Given Bernard's reaction, like Bernard like straight up is like stunned into silence, and we see him like in the rest of the episode, and obviously, you know, we'll talk about that, but he goes a little
He's
nuts.
very defeated.
So I do think that there is maybe something else that the voice said that we didn't see. But yeah, I didn't get the impression that the encounter like lasted all that long or anything. So we'll see. Maybe we'll flash back to it. That would be nice. But I think it was deliberate that we're like not seeing that and that we're not hearing what exactly was spoken to Bernard, like on that bridge with Lukas.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even get down to the tunnel, and the tunnel was introduced to us in early season 1, and it took a while for us to even come back to that, right? So yeah, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised that we didn't get to go inside. It took us a long time to get inside the vault too, so. Okay, so what did you think about the way that he was going about it, though? He needed to tell Bernard about the conversation without the algorithm knowing, and so he told him to pretend they're having a serious conversation, and that if the algorithm heard him telling him that they were all dead. But I kind of thought that that's what he was going to be telling him anyway, that they're all dead. So that confused me. You know what I mean? Because the way Lukas behaves, it kind of seems like he thinks they're already all dead. So he's already defeated. So that's why he quits being his shadow, because he thinks it's Bernard was like upset that he has never had any real control.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between being dead instantly though, and maybe if you don't stop this rebellion, we'll be dead. Like, yeah. I think the implication was that if the algorithm heard Lukas tell this to someone, it was like instant safeguard, like that second. Whereas, you know, it might be more like, oh, there's time, or you can fix this, or something like that. Like, I think that whatever he told Bernard was world shattering and possibly is something like, you're all gonna die anyway. But I think Bernard's at his breaking point, like, for this entire season. So I'm also not entirely convinced that even a minor thing could have just been the straw that broke the camel's back for him. Yeah. And he decided, like, yeah, that's it. I'm out. I've done everything I can and I'm out. So
literally.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a reason Lukas obviously picked this loud, crowded, open area where people are like freaking out. And although if I were, I mean, I say if I were the algorithm, but like, yeah, if I were the algorithm watching them, or a person watching them, or whatever is watching them, I'd be like, it's really suspicious that Lukas immediately ran up to this guy and is having like a whispered, huggy conversation with him.
And then the way Bernard acts after that, right? It kind of seems clear that Lukas told him what he wasn't supposed to tell him.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I guess we're just gonna have to wait on that too, since obviously not that much time actually passes like in the rest of this episode.
Okay, and then it brings us to the scene that explains why we've had to endure all this Sims stuff leading up to it, because they were just basically showing us that Sims has been chasing the shadow position for the last decade. That's what he always wanted. That's what his wife is trying to get him into position for. But even with the efforts of both of them, they've never been able to achieve it. And then at the last minute, like, he's just like, you want to be my shadow? He's like, it's yours. And he just gives it to him. He gives him the combo just easy, just like that. And it's like a hollow victory because
Sims knows something's wrong. Yeah, like, he knows this isn't normal and that Bernard wouldn't have done this normally.
Yeah. So, And especially with what Lukas tells him later too, because Lukas goes to see his mom, because this is what I was talking about. Like he's like acting defeatist too, so it seems like he's just gonna go see his mom because he just wants to spend time with her because he doesn't feel like they have much time left. And so and this becomes clear too when Sims barges in. I don't know why he pulled a gun on him. What did you think of that?
Everyone's pretty tense, I guess. Yeah. I also think this might just be like TV magic, like trying to amp up the risk of everything by pulling guns and making explosions happen in the finale.
He just really doesn't like Lukas too, so maybe he just needed to do it to feel better about himself.
Exactly.
His confidence has been shaken for like the last the last 10 episodes, so they have a pretty important conversation, and Lukas says, "Oh, so you're the new Shadow." And he says, "Did he give you the key?" And he says, "Yes, he gave him the key." And he says that Bernard thought that the key not lighting up was because nothing's wrong, but that he was wrong about that. And the reason it's not lighting up is because it's over. He couldn't quell the rebellion, so they're gonna. It kind of sounds like he realizes that they're gonna initiate the safeguard, and that's why he's there spending time with his mom, because, yeah, it's almost over for them. And he even tells
Sims. Yeah, he tells Sims to go to the vault like before it's over so he can see the legacy and do all the things that presumably Sims wanted to do before they all die.
Which is funny because Sims is probably not the type to enjoy a library. Right? He's like, "No, you better go look at the library before we all die." And he goes in there and he's just like, "I don't want to read these books."
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he thought being an IT shadow would include, but I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like Sims is the type to want this job, but I guess he just wants the power that goes with it and not the job. And he wants to keep his family safe.
Because, I mean, obviously he wouldn't be clear to know what is involved being the IT shadow, so it was probably just an idea in his head and he just wanted it, right? Like a kid who wants something that they can't have, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So Sims goes to the vault, he keys it in, and they show him walking in, and the algorithm greets him. And at first, when he's like, "Please state your name," I was like, "Oh my god, did he not bring his family?" But then they show them standing right behind him. So
it's like close up on him, yeah.
Yeah, it was like right in his eyes. I was like, "Whoa, why are we so literally in his face?" But yeah, so they were there behind him, and this really confused me because he introduces his son and his wife, and then the algorithm tells him, "You and your son have to leave. Camille can stay." And I was like, "What?"
Oh, but first the algorithm asked him why he was there, and he said, "I wanted to save the silo." And the algorithm says, "I do too," or something like that. Like it says, like, we share this goal, or something that agrees with him.
Okay, so why do you think Camille is vital to saving the silo? Because it says, "I do too. Camille can stay." So what? She wasn't, because people were saying that it's because he didn't get sworn in, so he's not officially the IT shadow. But she wasn't either. So what gives?
Yeah, and like, why wouldn't you want her son? Like, I could see maybe not wanting Sims, but I'm like, so you want her to like abandon her child too? Like send them both outside the vault?
Yeah. I was really confused. So, I mean, and this is what they've been leading up to. You know, they've been elevating Camille this whole season, showing that she's wily, she's smart, she's like maneuvering behind the scenes and trying to move all these things. And I'm still not like a fan of Camille, so I was kind of like, not happy with this development.
Neither am I. I'm not a fan of her, and also they've been, like you said, they've been elevating her in like the plot and sort of her smarts and her involvement, but they haven't done anything to indicate that she would be special in this regard, right? Like, I didn't get any sense, like, she's not a former shadow. I guess she's former IT kind of, but like it kind of came out of the blue to me that she would be like even known by the algorithm. Which I guess was maybe the point. It was supposed to be like a reveal.
Yeah, I guess it'll come out even. I think it'll probably come out eventually that she has some kind of something in her past that makes her special, and we just don't know what it is yet. I mean, that has to be what it is, right? I don't think it's good to be that the algorithm randomly chooses her over him, right? I mean, and oh my god, people.
I
But
think
people
it's
were.
interesting. It's interesting though that the algorithm doesn't want Sims either though, because Bernard has been rejecting him for very
Yeah,
vague
yeah,
reasons
yeah.
like this entire show. And
He's not curious enough.
yeah, like it almost seems like Bernard and the algorithm are like passively in agreement about that, but it's also maybe that they're actively in agreement about that. Like maybe Bernard has like pitched him before and then the algorithm was like no.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, actually, yeah, that maybe that means that they've been watching her and they've been choosing her as a candidate for him.
Well, apparently they have very far-reaching like eyes because obviously they said to Lukas if you tell anyone that implies that they have like access to
They
a
have a way to
lot
know,
of
right?
information. Yeah.
Okay, so this brings us to the climax of the episode, which is my favorite part personally. They're having a huge fight between Patrick and Mechanical, the two different sides of the Down Deepers, because Patrick's trying to get out and Mechanical's trying to stop them because they understand the implications of going outside. They actually, I don't know, because they wanted to go outside too, right? But
Mechanical?
yeah, like weren't they gonna go to Meadows to argue that they should explore to go see if Jules was alive?
Well, at least the excuse they gave was that they might want to go to explore new ways of exploring
But they
outside now
wanted to
that
wear
they had
suits though,
the
right?
yes, they wanted to wear suits and they wanted to use the good tape like that,
Yeah.
Bernard kind of conned everyone into believing they recently created.
So they are on different they have different opinions. So
Yeah, I don't think Mechanical wants to like bust down the door and just
and
leave like
leave.
Patrick does. I think they have a more controlled plan in play or like idea of
They
a
care
plan
more
in
about
place,
Jules,
whereas
right?
they care about Jules and I think they care about like bringing order to the silo, but in a
Hmm.
way that like maybe like is like
Brings peace.
safe. Yeah, and brings
Yeah.
peace. Whereas
Yeah.
like Patrick just is like kind of delusional and believes that he's like a conspiracy theorist, right? He like
He's been spouting about the green. He's been talking about the page that Billings, right, like the page
yeah.
and the glitch and everything, and because he saw the video too, right? Jane Carmody's video.
Yep. Yeah, he's one of the only people who's seen it around, I think.
Yeah. Whatever happened to Danny? We never saw him again. The hacker, the red haired hacker guy. We never saw him again. I hope he's okay. But so Billings manages to get through the scuffle and he heads to the sheriff's department. And that's where actually we skipped this part. Bernard got his suit and he went to the sheriff's office. And there were a bunch of people in there who were taking shelter and they're
Yeah,
just
like the
confused,
oh, I just thought
right?
they were the people who worked there, like the
No, no,
deputies
no.
and the staff.
They look like citizens or something. Maybe they were like deputy families or something. But yeah, they were like asking him, and he walks through the cafeteria and everything, and he gets there, and then when he's in the office, he just fires a gun and tells everyone to get the fuck out. That was
Yeah, I
awesome.
love his meltdown this episode. I love it.
But yeah, so he's locked himself in there with one deputy. I wasn't sure why he kept that guy. Do you understand why he kept that guy? Was it because
I
he needed him
figured
to
he
close the
needed
door behind him?
yeah, he needs someone to
Yeah.
close the door behind him.
Okay, okay. But yeah, so Billings is pleading with him through the door to like help bring back order to the silo because he knows that, Patrick is right behind him and they want to storm the door and go outside. And they actually like Patrick is like really determined. He's like getting everybody to like bring down an entire like giant kitchen shelf and use that as a battering ram and everything. And while they're like fighting and struggling between like him trying to get that ram to the sheriff's office, they spot someone standing at the top of the hill and oh my god, this moment was kind of amazing. I don't know what I had expected. I think I hadn't expected it at this point because I guess I kind of had somehow put Jules out of my mind, and I guess I had kind of thought that they would eventually cut back to her like walking over and stuff like that. So I like that they did it this way, where the last that we see of her is hugging Solo, and then the next thing you know, she's just running down the hill again.
Yeah, it's like it's not from her perspective anymore. I liked that.
Yeah,
She
that
like
was
really
that.
books it down the hill too.
I know, and she like and she cleans the lens, right?
I loved that. Yeah.
I love that too. Yeah, so Julia comes down the hill, she cleans, everyone's cheering, and it was a really emotional moment when I was watching it again. Like, I was watching, like, the looks in everybody's faces, and Knox looks really hopeful, and Shirley just looks kind of stoic, but I was reacting the way Billings was. He was just really emotional, and he looked like he was, like, about to start crying, and that's how I felt. So I was on board with Billings's reaction.
I was too busy being, like, really worried about her because I was like, "There's no way she's
Air.
getting in the doors, and no one currently can, like, open the doors for her." So I was,
Yeah.
like, really worried. I was like, "What's she gonna do if, like, the doors won't open? Is she gonna turn around and go back to 17?" And I couldn't even be emotional in that moment because I was too busy, like, worrying.
She brought her trusty crowbar.
And tries to open the door, which
Oh my
seemed
god, yeah.
completely absurd to me. Like, I was like, "Did you think that would work?" Like, I don't know. That didn't seem very engineer-y to me to think that that thing would
Yeah.
have opened with a crowbar and, like, a woman's strength.
She did get a door open in 17, but, that wasn't the same door that she got open when she went to 17. That the big door leading down to that ramp was already open when she got to 17. So
Yeah.
she opened, like, a smaller door down at the bottom, the one that leads to the airlock. But yeah, so she, like, can't get it open, and eventually the door opens for her, so yay. So when Jules came over and she cleaned, my first thought was, "Please tell me you brought a note," because I thought they still want to come outside. Please tell me you brought something. So when Bernard goes and looks out the window in holding, and he sees her holding up a sign that says "Not safe, do not come out." I was like, "Oh, thank God."
I actually was kinda surprised that's all the note said. I actually kinda thought the note would say something like, "Let me in and I'll explain everything," or I don't know, like, maybe that was supposed to be implied that they would let her in, but
Yeah,
I thought it was gonna be,
I
like, a
think
longer
so.
note.
Yeah. But
But
actually,
I think this speaks to, like, what she's worried about, right? Like, she's
yeah,
imminently worried that they are, like,
they're
breaking
gonna
down
all
the
rush
door
out,
like
right?
Silo 17 did. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that she was conveying the most pertinent information.
And actually, now that I think about it, I think she actually cleaned the camera with her note because it looked like it was written on, like, a T-shirt or something.
Oh, I thought she just, like, cleaned it with her glove or something. I wasn't really paying
No,
attention.
I now that I think about it, I think she cleaned it with that note with her T-shirt note.
Yeah, so, Bernard opens the door for her, and she's coming in as he's kind of coming out, and they meet in, like, the staircase of the airlock like, right outside the
At the
airlock,
bottom of the
kind
ramp,
of.
right?
Yeah, at the bottom of the ramp, but outside the airlock,
Yeah.
which is important. And, yeah, he basically is his defeated self now and just tells her he wants to go outside and be free for one moment in his life, which I think speaks to, like, a lot about, like, his feelings, like, just,
Mhm.
the idea that he's
His
been
state of mind
sort of yeah, his, like and that he's been sort of, like, trapped in this role and that he realizes now exactly how trapped he's been the whole time.
and it was pointless, basically. Yeah, I mean, it's to the point where she asks him, "Well, why are you pointing a gun at me? What's the gun for?" And he says it's for himself. It's not it's not for her.
Yeah.
Right. It's if he says it's if the pain becomes too much.
So, yeah, and then their conversation's kind of abruptly interrupted because the door to
The
the
door starts
airlock
closing.
starts closing, and she runs inside, I think,
She
like
runs inside and he tries to stop her because he says,
yeah.
"No, you're gonna get burnt to a crisp," and he ends up getting stuck in there trying to stop her from going inside. So he tries to save her, which I thought was interesting. His not like even if they're at odds with each other, he's still like doing this
Yeah,
and
that was his
he's trying to stop
instinct.
her. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the flames start coming on, he yells to get down, and then she covers him, like, she, like, jumps
Yeah.
on top of him, which is important, right? Because she's wearing
Yes.
a fire suit, which everyone on the
Yes.
internet was very quick to point out, and now we
Yes,
know why, I
yes.
guess.
'Cause some people were like, "Oh my god, so is Bernard dead?" And so okay, so I am firmly in the Bernard lives camp because there is no
Definitely.
way that okay, you can people were arguing that, well, maybe Tim Robbins is really expensive, but for me, it's like that's possible, but they're not gonna kill him like that, right?
I mean, I can maybe see them killing him like that, but we're gonna get confirmation either way, like, you're not gonna kill someone off screen, and And yeah, he's such a major character that I think we're gonna keep him, barring
Yeah,
maybe some
yeah.
crazy issue with the actor or the writing or the filming or whatever. But yeah, I think he's gonna be fine. I think Jules is gonna be fine. I didn't have any. This doesn't feel like a real cliffhanger to me.
Yeah. I mean, she's obviously wearing that fire suit. I mean, it's clear now why they had her put on a fire suit because they needed her to survive this, right? When she came back. And I feel like him being in there with her and the fact that we've had to suspend our disbelief with other things, we're going to have to do it again, right?
Yeah. Yes, I think
Yeah.
they're gonna get out of it. Maybe a little,
He's going to be burnt
crispier.
probably. Yeah.
um, Yeah, so that brings us to the end of the Silo 18 and I guess Silo 17 plot lines.
I really liked how they brought them together. It was nicely done, like converging them.
Yeah, I figured that the ending of that would be her coming back. Like, I figured we would get
Mhm.
cliff hung somehow on her
Mhm.
returning. I actually didn't even think she'd get this far. Like, I was under the like I thought we were gonna kind of see her leave and maybe crest the top of the hill, but then not know what happens. So this
Mhm.
was actually more information than I thought we were gonna get from this
Yeah,
plot
yeah.
line.
I think that's how I felt too because I think that's part of the reason why I was so like struck by that scene when she starts running down the hill. I was like, "Oh my god, this is this is more than I was expecting."
I thought it was gonna be like a mirror moment with the opening, like where you see her
Mm.
like crossing over the hill, and then I thought we were gonna kind of see her crossing back, but not
Yeah,
continue
yeah.
beyond that.
Yeah.
But then we get a very abrupt cut to a
A rainy
rainy
street.
street in what I think we're calling in our notes the DC flashback
Yeah.
arc. um,
This was a real gotcha moment, and it's funny to imagine this because, and no spoilers here, but book readers, I think we're probably reacting with, "Oh, here we go,"
I
right?
sat up straighter. Yeah, I was like, "Oh. Oh, I see."
Yeah, but everybody else, I think the pure show watchers were probably like, "What happened? Did I change the channel?
Oh, definitely. I saw some reactions online being like people being like, "What even what was
What
that?"
happened? Is this the same show?" But yeah, so a man crosses the street in the rain and he's scanned at the door to a place called the Capitol Tavern. And inside, he meets a woman named Helen and they have an awkward first date conversation.
Yeah,
Right?
it's worth noting that they're clearly in Washington D.C. The
Yeah,
Capitol
yeah.
building is like right in view behind the entrance of the tavern and stuff. So
And
it
there's
it
like
seems
political
pretty.
like magazines and newspapers on
Yeah.
the wall and
Yeah, so he sits down. They have a very, like you said, very awkward conversation where a dirty bomb was recently used. They mention where they were, like when it happened. They mention it possibly or maybe definitely being done by Iran. And as they're going on in this conversation, like it seems really clear that Helen knows a lot about the man.
Mhm.
He's a
Who they
congressman. He
don't
hasn't
name.
Yeah, they don't name, but he's a congressman. He has an engineering background. He has, I think, time in the army.
Yeah.
Um, and it kind of becomes clear that she's sort of like grilling him because she's a journalist and isn't actually on
Mhm.
like a date with him. And he seems pretty upset by like the whole conversation.
Yeah, because he basically just cuts it off, right? He's like, "I'm gonna go."
Yeah, he cuts it off. He gets up to leave, and as he's like kind of leaving, he mentions how like he got her a gift, and again, it's awkward. He mentions that he got it at like a corner store right before the date, and
He got it for her because she's a duck and he's a Georgia bulldog.
yes, yeah, they're from. She's from.
University of Oregon.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, University of Oregon. He's from University of Georgia, so he got her a gift because she's an Oregon duck, and
That's
when
how
she
he was
opens the
raised.
Yes, he was yes, the whole thing's really, like, awkward. He just, like, gives her this gift anyway, even though it's clear that, like, she was not at all interested in him and the conversation didn't go well. And he kinda storms off after dropping this paper bag on the table, and when she opens it, it's a duck Pez.
And the silo music is playing.
Yeah, it was a really nice little
I
cliffhanger there.
Yeah, I love the tie back because it that basically just confirms that it's a flashback because we know that what we're watching is at least 352 years in the future because of what Bernard said about when the silos were built. But
Yeah.
we don't know when this scene is taking place, but presumably it's sometime before, right? This is the first time they're meeting. We don't know what happens after that because she kind of vaguely seems to mention what he might have to do with it because she mentioned his engineering degree, right? So
Yeah, she talks about his career and how he's like a freshman congressman and she knows he's trying to work towards certain things. There are some clues on the table. Like we do see some indications that things are going wrong maybe in the world.
yeah,
There's some sort of magazine or newspaper that has like new normal written on it. It has people in hazmat suits. They were clearly scanning for something at the door, like you
at the
said.
door.
I don't know if that was the radiation from
Yeah,
the dirty bomb or if that was something else. Yeah, so I don't know. I didn't have any sort of problems identifying this as a flashback. It's just at this point, how flashback is it?
yeah.
Like how
Like
far
how
are we
far back
going?
is it? Yeah. But oh my god, I loved it overall.
Yeah, I'd loved it too. I love the
The
whole episode, and I
great
definitely
finale.
loved this flashback hook.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. And it holds up really well on a second watch. So definitely give that another go if you have the time. So let's quickly go into community reactions. So a lot of people were fixating on the one-liners, and we've talked about those like Bernard and Lucas and Sims. I think that's part of what made the episode so good. Is there were a lot of moments that you could fixate on and laugh at, and get a lot of enjoyment out of.
Yeah, and it's funny how that works too, because like it is such an emotional episode and such a tense episode, but also you could laugh in the middle of
Yeah,
it. So
yeah,
that's like really
yeah,
good writing and direction.
yeah.
Definitely something that I think is going to come up a lot in the off season and then at the beginning of next season is the community is really curious why the world is the way it is.
Hmm.
We've now talked about radiation and dirty bombs. We've had these indications throughout the season of things like you said like earlier that the dust that kind of came by and may or may
Hmm.
not have killed Silo 17. So there's like a lot of speculation on like what the problem could have been. It does seem to be
Hmm.
a lot of people talking about radiation or maybe disease of some kind.
I mean, nuclear is always one of those things that people go to when they try to debate when they try to figure out what's happening because it's a pretty common source material for post-apocalyptic stuff.
Yeah,
And then
definitely.
the new normal thing pretty much supports that. But oh my god, that phrase, the new normal, that really brought back like COVID vibes for me,
I know, right?
like with the
Or even just
masks and everything.
even like scanning to get in somewhere. Like I know we weren't ever scanned, but like you'd show your card at least around where I
Yeah,
live,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and there'd be
yeah.
like rules and stuff. So that
Hmm.
definitely I felt that.
Yeah. That felt like it came from world personal experience. Okay, so this is kind of a pivot, but this is something that I thought of while I was falling asleep and reading Discord. But basically, there was all this talk about the safeguard, and we know that it's a poison, and we are talking about like we were saying that like it's a Jimmy said it's a pipe, and they managed to cap it. But I was just thinking like, why would the founders put this safeguard in place, and that's the only method to distribute it, right? So I was just wondering if, because I think we've mentioned in the past, like, why are these big fans in the middle of the column, like at the bottom? So I was wondering if that's like another part of their distribution system. Do you think they could turn those fans up really high, and then they could distribute poison that way?
Maybe. I don't actually remember these fans. I thought maybe big fans were like just ventilation or maybe
Yeah,
cooling for like the
I think they are
generator.
part of ventilation, but I think I remember us saying, "What are these giant fans here for?" Because I don't
I
know,
just
because it.
assumed that whatever pipe when they piped in the poison, if they do that for the safeguard, it was just going to go through the entire like ventilation
Mm,
system because there
yeah,
must be like there's definitely like an HVAC system like through this whole thing with ventilation. So I don't know. I figure there's already mechanisms in place to distribute this pretty quickly to like
But
everyone's apartment.
the other thing to keep in mind, though, is that this is information from an unreliable narrator because it's from Jimmy, and he was just a kid, and it was decades ago, so his memory might be muddled, and it was his parents doing it, so they might have had to do a whole lot of other things to actually stop the safeguard procedure that he wasn't aware of because maybe they had already put him in the vault and then they went to go do certain things because it doesn't really sound like it's as simple as putting a cap on a pipe. Right?
It's hard to tell though because when we looked at the blueprints, which we've seen several times now over the course of like this season, it does seem to indicate that some stuff comes from like one main entrance
Source.
into the silo, like yeah, one main source. So it might be as easy as capping a single pipe, but I don't think that there wouldn't be a distribution system. Like there must be, they definitely, the founders, if they were doing this, definitely put in place like a way to very quickly distribute it across this whole silo.
Oh, okay, so they said that it was on level 14, which is actually where judicial is on level 18, and judicial is one of the levels that they said that there's lines coming out of, right? People had speculated because they said that there's one going into IT and there's one going into judicial. So we knew that the one that was going into IT was power because they have backup power. And Jimmy had confirmed that it's power from the outside, or he said it was a power source from the outside. And so that's what's keeping the lights on for him and the vault. But we weren't sure what the one from judicial is, but that must be what it is, right? That's the tunnel
There's
going
also
into judicial.
no reason to think that the lines don't mean multiple things.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they
that's
could mean
true.
power and poison. Yeah, I don't know.
Although I don't know, I'm like, why would it go into judicial? That's kind of a mystery too. So, because you would think that it would
I
go
mean, I
down.
imagine it doesn't matter. Like if you're
Yeah,
pumping it into a central HVAC system of some kind, it
yeah,
it, it wouldn't matter. Probably wherever it was most convenient to engineer, maybe.
yeah. Okay, we talked about this thing about whether Jimmy has ever talked to the algorithm, and so you agree that you don't think that he's ever spoken to it.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. I think that basically wraps it up. The mod team from the Silo Series subreddit as we mentioned, is working with Apple TV, and this week we have some behind the scenes images to share. There were some interesting ones of props. There was one of a set of books, and it says number one on the cover, and it doesn't say like the pact or anything. I don't think it's a book we've ever seen. So we were just looking at it like, what is this book? And so we don't know if it's like a volume one or if it means like the number one silo, or yeah, so I don't know, go take a look and let us know what you think. Did you take a look at them?
I have not seen this week's yet.
Yeah, so you should go look at that. Real quick, what we've been watching. I finished watching Lockerbie. I don't know why, but the whole thing was available on Peacock, but it's still airing weekly in the UK. So I got to see it all in advance, all at once, while the people over there have to wait week to week. But it was brutal, but it was really good, and it was honestly a little weird finishing it because it had to do with Iran terrorism, and so just to have Iran come into Silo in the same week that I finished watching, I was like, oh. And then I started watching The Pit, which is basically a modern ER brought to you by the same guy who made ER. So I guess that's why the vibe is the same. And I'm watching Goosebumps The Vanishing with my son. So
Yeah, I'm watching Severance, which aired its premiere for season 2 on the same day as Silo. So I literally went from watching the Silo finale to watching the Severance season 2 premiere. I'm watching The
no spoilers.
Traitors,
I
which
haven't
is
watched it yet.
The Traitors or
No,
Severance.
Severance. I haven't watched it yet.
I mean,
So
it's one episode. How can there even really be
yeah.
spoilers? But no, I won't. I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to say that I'm also watching The Traitors, which is one of our like reality game show competition things that we like to watch. And other than that, I haven't really been watching a lot of TV. We've been watching a lot of like those Netflix like documentaries, which we sometimes get in the mood for, and we were catching up on a bunch of them. So TV is like off the table this week.
So we're gonna be back with another episode after this one. We're gonna have a powwow with the Silo Series subreddit team. the mods are going to come on and they're going to talk to us about the season in general and like what we can look forward to in the off season, maybe some vague season 3 predictions. But yeah, that should wrap it all up.
Yeah, that's it for the season. I'm sad it's over.
Yeah. It was quite a ride at the end. I mean, I know
it was those last 2 episodes.
Yeah, it got kind of rough in the middle, but oh my god, the payoff at the end was pretty worth it. Those were some good TV the last 2 weeks. Okay, so we have a question for our Spotify listeners. What are the kids eating in the vault? Is it peaches or is it something else? Thank you for joining us for another episode of Wires from the Deep. If you're enjoying our podcast, be sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on Spotify, leave us a comment and let us know your thoughts on our discussion. You can join conversations about the show on the Silo Series subreddit and on the Down Deep Discord, where you can participate in discussions with other fans. And we just had our last Friday night watch party and our final quiz, but it was very popular like this season. So be sure to join so that you can talk to us in the off season while we wait until season 3. But if you want to contact me and Angela, you can leave a comment on one of our YouTube videos or you can email us at crystal@thedowndeep.net. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.